Welcome to Bandit's Keep. I'm Daniel. This week we're going to talk about sages, gurus, libraries, where we can get information and research in our games or where the player characters can get them. Also, I have a great sponsor this week, Enclave. It's a new RPG. It's being kickstarted currently. It's already met its goal, so it's definitely going to be coming out. And I'll talk more about that in a few minutes, but it's a diceless game. You definitely want to check it out. Link in the description. Okay, sages. This is a question I actually get quite a bit. And I generally say, well, there's lots of different ways we can do it, and there's lots of advice, and I point people in different directions, but I haven't made a video about it. But now, I need it in my campaign. The characters have reached a certain point where they've uncovered a lot of information, where further adventuring will lead to more and more information. They're just running out of time. They need to bring in resources. They had been keeping stuff real close to their vests, but anyways, they're bringing in some people who might have some information. So I wanted to get some general rules on how that would work. Oftentimes with these things, I base it on kind of my world. Like I kind of know who might know what and whatever, but it's good to have rules in place just in case you need to figure something out that you hadn't planned for, or if you just get stuck, right? So the first place I look always on this channel for things, because it's the place that I learned how to play D&D. And to me, one of the best resources to learn is the basic expert set. So this is the expert book. Spoiler, there's not a whole lot in there. It basically repeats what is in book 3 of Dungeons & Dragons, original Dungeons & Dragons, that is to say, that there's not a whole lot in there. I'll show you what we got. Let's jump into it. Okay, so this is the expert book, Sage, 2,000 gold pieces per month. A sage is an advisor capable of answering questions involving great knowledge. For each uncommon question they attempt to answer, there will always be a chance of failure. The DM will have to decide on the amount of time it takes and the cost of research each question. They're extremely rare. The DM may want to limit the number in the campaign. Okay, well, that doesn't tell us a whole lot, right? I think if you're new to the game, like this suspects, and probably young, because it was targeted at younger people, maybe you wouldn't really know what a sage was, and that gives you that information, right? You get it. You know what a sage is. Cool. But how do we use a sage? And again, in book 3, it kind of says the same thing, although it has the caveat that only fighters can hire sages, which I think is kind of interesting. And maybe that, in the world building sense, maybe that's because magic users would want to research it themselves because, of course, magic users want to keep that information. And maybe clerics would want to go to their temples. Like they wouldn't just be out there hiring a third party to research something necessarily. I would not stick to that rule, but hey, that's what's in there. Okay, so where do we first start finding information about sages that can be useful? That is here. Probably my least favorite of the extra books for OD&D, Blackmore. I hardly use anything from this. No particular reason. It just has like assassins and monks and stuff, and I don't put them in my game. It has a lot of underwater stuff. It has a module in it, which is very cool. But I don't use a lot of stuff from this, but there are rules in Blackmore for sages. And these rules get expanded upon. And, if you don't own this right here, if you ever see one, pick it up. This is the first edition Dungeon Master's Guide. Even though you might be playing some other game, I find this to have just a wealth of knowledge, and not like you must follow these rules knowledge necessarily, although it does have that, but how did they think you might want to do this in this game as it was kind of in its, we'll call it teenage years, right? Although I don't think it had been that old yet, but it was past its kind of new stage. It was a brand new game and it's developing into something more substantial. This DMG is full of information. So there is a whole section on there. Here, I'm likely going to use the one in Blackmore because I'm running an OD&D campaign, so I kind of want to keep it close to that. But I think we'll look at Blackmore, and then I'll come back and I'll tell you why this right here might be worth looking at as well. But first, let me talk about my sponsor, Enclave. This is a new role-playing game. It's on Kickstarter currently, and it has already met the goal. It's going to be there till September 8th. I'll put a link in the description. This is a diceless game and tableless. Basically, this game is all about interacting. And, it's funny, as I was looking at it, I was like, that's basically how I play, but then I throw a die in, right? But the game's really about this idea that you're playing this group of specialists, agents, if you will, working for this company called the Enclave. And you are kind of the peak of human skill, so you're very skilled in this game. You can be above human skill, like very good, depending on your character class. And you can play a variety of things, illusionists, gunslingers, wanderers, all kinds of stuff, because the world that this takes place in, Manifold, is kind of like a multiverse. There's all different tech levels, there's all kinds of stuff going on. So you can kind of use this for just about any kind of scenario you want to come up with. You, as the conduit, which is basically the referee or DM for this game, come up with this idea. Team, you've been brought together for this mission. Do you accept it or not? Hopefully your players accept it. And then you get teleported in, you do your one shot around this whole thing, and then you come back. So it's great to kind of, you can serialize. I've talked about that before on the channel. You can serialize your adventures, or you can just do a one shot at a convention or a quick pickup game. It's easy to learn. And there are a lot of more advanced rules that you can get into, but effectively the long and short of it is your character has some special abilities like spells or whatever. If you're a spellcaster, they have some stats, which there's 12 of them. You are either baseline or up to +3. So base +1, +2, +3, depending on how good you are at something, how compelling your kind of description is of what you're doing and how reasonable it is for it to succeed, you will have a chance of success. And you basically just narrate it out. So I'm a really good shot. I want to try to shoot the chandelier to make it fall on people. I've got +2 in my ability that's related to that. I'm probably going to do it, right? It's just going to do it. I don't need to roll dice. You don't have that weird swingy thing that you get in some D20 systems where it's like, I'm the strongest guy in the room, but I can't open the door because I rolled a natural 1. You don't get that in a game like this. Whatever makes sense works. I haven't played it, but it seems really, really fun. If you go to the Kickstarter, there's still time. It's up till September 8th. There is actually a playthrough on there. It's about 2 hours. You can watch through it. And there's a 6-minute kind of brief overview by the creator, so you can get a real good gist of the game. Do check it out. I'll put a link in the description below. And yeah, I hope you play it and let me know. Okay, we're looking at Blackmore now. This is the section on sages. And again, it's 2 pages. I like the OD&D style of things because it's simpler. You'll see in AD&D some cool stuff's been added though, so you can decide which one works better for you. But some of these things are the same, like the following. Every sage will be a specialist in certain areas, and you're going to roll. So if you just go into a town and there's a sage and you randomly walk up to them, you can roll. So when you do that, you're going to roll a D100 on this list, and you can see here that, let's say that you roll a 5. They're below average, which means they only have a 20% chance of knowing the answer to the questions in their field. And then we would just go to the next page over here, and there's 3 major fields, living things in their history, supernatural and metaphysical things, and the physical universe. If we look over here, we can see that they list some examples. The living things would be botany, zoology, medicine, blah, blah. So pretty easy to do, right? You might even get a sage that is exceptional in all the categories with a 95% chance of knowing the answer. That's the guy that you're going to have to go seek out, right? Sages cost $2,000, about 2,000 gold pieces a month baseline in this system. But there are rules for like more research, getting them libraries to use to make it a better chance of succeeding and stuff like that. So that's cool. Effectively, you want to hire a sage. How would I do this? If you know what you're looking for, then you can first research. So you might need a general sage to let you know who might know this information. Who is the exceptional person that knows everything there is to know about blue dragons, right? Then you find out who that sage is and you seek them out. That's how I would do it. I don't think that I would necessarily roll random sages unless you just happen to be in the town and the player characters are like, we want to go to the Baron here and see what their sage says. Then you can roll to see what, right? If we jump over to Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, so when we jump over to AD&D, it becomes a little bit more in-depth, which can be good for some things. And I'm going to kind of tell you what I like about this. Here we have minor fields and we have special categories in their major field. So you can roll to see what the sage might know. On the next page, we have much more in-depth fields. We have humankind, demi-humankind, humanoids and giants, physical universe, fauna, flora, supernatural. So again, you're kind of got more smaller specializations. This is great if you're running a very high magic world with lots of sages, because then you can be like, well, that's the guy that knows exactly about that. But if you're running a more sparse kind of points of light world, I think this is too many categories. I think you're going to find that it's going to be hard to, there's either sages everywhere or you're not going to be able to find one. Down here, with the chance of knowing is kind of interesting because they have chances depending on if it's in their field, out of their field, or not. And whether the question is general, specific, or exacting. I like this. I like this table a lot. So instead of saying, okay, they have a 95% chance to know anything because I rolled really well, or a 20% chance to only know some things in their field. Okay, so let's look at this and say, question, okay, let's say that you go to a sage. Let's say you do go to the town and we roll to see what random sage is there, and you're looking for information about a green dragon or a blue dragon. Well, you can look here and go, well, a sage, this isn't their field of expertise. They only have between an 11 and 20% chance of knowing. If it's just a general idea about dragons, they'd have a 31 to 50% chance of knowing. I love that, right? But if you seek out the specialty, right, in the special category of the major field, exacting information can be had between 61 and 80% of the time. That is so good. You know, again, this is where AD&D shines, is in the depth. They really dig into it, right? And here they talk about all kinds of stuff. It's not a flat 2,000 gold pieces. It depends on how many days they're working for you, what's going on. And again, this is another chart that I really like here. How long it takes. So again, if you're asking a general question out of the field for somebody, it's only going to take like 1 to 6 rounds. So 1 to 6 minutes, they're going to come up with an answer. It might not be a great answer, it's a general answer. Yeah, dragons mostly have wings, right? If you want an exacting, you can't, they don't know that, right? If it's in special category and it's exacting, it might take from 2 to 12 days. And it's 200 gold pieces a day is basically what they want. They charge you more depending on if it's in or out of their field, which I really like. I love that idea. So again, AD&D is great for that kind of stuff. But if we just think about sages in general, how do we use this practically in game? So I started hinting at it earlier, but let's kind of do a breakdown here. And I'll explain it based on my campaign. So currently they are trying to stop a cult that is trying to raise up the old gods. Earlier in the campaign, they had gone to a site where this giant hand was, the stone hand was stuck out of the ground, and it had been turned into a tower. And there was rumors that that had been the body of, you guessed it, an old god. Well, the necromancer who they helped to do that is also kind of a sage. She's got some kind of time travel magic. But anyways, she wants more information about these old gods. She seems to be on their side, that she doesn't think it's a good idea for them to come back, but she wants the magic and stuff that they had. So she's kind of pointed them in the direction where another body of an old god is, where they went in there and they found some items. So they've got, and then they use the commune spell because they have a high level cleric, and they were able to get some answers. But now they only know generally. They know that they need this certain kind of metal, that it's on another planet. Yes, I run that kind of campaign. That they've got this strange box that might help them travel there. They don't know exactly how to use it because being anywhere near it is deadly. So they've got like base information. Now they need to know more. So they've gone to this necromancer who they told what they told, and now she is effectively a sage. She's a sage in certain information, in the old gods. That's her specialty, right? I already established that in game that she was a specialist there. But there was a few other things they wanted to know about, some metalworking and some other stuff. For that, she's not a specialist. She said, well, I will, send you off. And there was another thing about something written in an ancient language that was about something. So she's sending them to a city where there's other sages. So there, I'm going to use these charts to figure out who's there, what they can do, how much they might charge, because they might not want to just help. And this is the interesting thing. And I guess this is where I differ from the books. And I understand that when games were made and why they were made and how they were made and whatever, the gold was important, right? It's like you need to pay the sage 2,000 gold pieces because that's information, and the game's all about pulling treasure and using treasure. But in my games, generally sages don't want money. Sometimes they do, but generally they want something. So again, the reason why this necromancer is helping them is because they went and gave her information about this other thing that she wanted information about. Information is power, and I think in the world of sages, that's basically the way it is. Now, if you're doing a domain type campaign where you're going to have castles and you hire your own sage to just be your person there all the time, that's different. But I'm talking about these like advanced specialist gurus that are like living off on the top of a mountain or in a swamp or on another planet or under the ground or wherever you put people, right? Maybe it could be a fish, right? Maybe it's under the ocean and you got to go down to see this sage fish and talk to them. Either way, it could be a sage bush. Bump. Oh, so bad. All right, well, if you're still here after that, it could be anything, right? So depending on your world and how you operate it, this is how I would run it. So let's do a couple of scenarios here. Let's say that you're running more of a low fantasy, pseudo-medievally world. Those sages are very likely going to be in some kind of church compound, in big monasteries, or hired by somebody running like a keep or a castle, right? Kings or princes or barons or knights, right? They're going to have them in their castle to advise them. That's where your sages are going to be. If you're running something a little bit more like I mean, maybe there were colleges and stuff in medieval too, but if I was doing more of a Renaissance-y kind of vibe, I would probably do more colleges, right? When collectors of wealth are, and maybe not necessarily princes and kings, although they still might have them, but maybe libraries are formed by just rich merchants and things, right? And that's where the artist guilds are, and you're going to find sages there. If you're running a Points of Light campaign like I am, these sages are going to be spread out. People, they're hermits who have collected knowledge over time, who use magics to look at the stars and look through time and commune with various spirits and such to have information. And those people are they don't care about society so much. They care about what they're trying to figure out, right? So they're going to be in the lonely tower or at the bottom of the ocean or, again, on a planet somewhere that you must go to. Put your sages where it makes sense for your world. Have your sages charge what makes sense for your world. Gold in more of a, kind of more low magic setting, maybe a quest for a high magic setting, maybe a religious journey or something for if you're going to like a monastery. They might say, well, that's fine. We can research this for you. But, this tribe over here of Vikings, stole some of our religious artifacts in a raid last winter. If you retrieve those religious artifacts, we will give you your information. So it's gold in a sense, but it's very specific gold, right? So this is how I would use them in my game. Time, I think the DMG does a good job with it. Otherwise, what OD&D says about time is basically to use the legend lore spell. And the legend lore spell effectively says roll a D100, and that's how many days. I'm not sure I would just make it 1 to 100 randomly. That doesn't feel like it works for me. I think I like what's in this DMG. Think about how exacting the information is, how much knowledge the sage has, and go from there. Maybe depending on where they roll, right? If they roll exactly the amount they needed to score the success, it takes a few weeks. If they score like way below, like they roll a 1, right? And a 1 on a percentile is good. Then they have that information right away. It's like, oh, I was just reading that last week, and they pull it off the chart. You can do that too. There's lots of different ways to do it. Again, and also think about the ticking clocks and the storylines and things that are going on in your world. What makes the most sense, right? If it's more intriguing to have it be, well, all right, it's going to take 3 to 6 weeks, roll, or if it's better to basically be like, oh, you know what? The world's going to end if they don't get this information. Maybe I should make it a little easier. You can obviously do that. You got to make it work, right? So that you always want to give your heroes a chance, but they may have to do something dangerous to gain that chance. One final thing I want to add to this, and I was asked this, or the question was put out on the Discord, is how does a player character research something? Because this person doesn't want to have them go to sages or for whatever reason. You can obviously do that. To me, I don't know that fits with the heroic vibe. The going to the library to look something up doesn't feel heroic to me. I feel like that's the job for the NPC. But if you were going to do it, my best advice would be to use the timing table from the DMG that I showed you. It's general knowledge about something that's out of your field. You'll be able to find something pretty quickly, but might not be able to find anything else. If it's exacting knowledge, blah, 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 it'll take you longer. Use the same sage thing as above, right? Look at that chart and go, well, okay, you have a ranger character and they're researching something about the woods. Well, that's in their specialty. So treat them just like that, and then treat the percentile chance that they know exactly the same. Just make your player characters the sage. In a lot of cases, it's going to be outside their knowledge level. You'll just use that chart. So again, let me give an example. Okay, so we're going to look at this here again. Let's say I'll use exactly what I said. We have this ranger, and they were out adventuring, and they saw that there was a strange corruption in the plants and animals, and there's something's metamorphosizing them into basically chaotic creatures that are attacking things, or the soil is going terribly rotten, and you can smell death, and worms are coming up out of the ground, and like not in a good way, right? And they're trying to figure out what it could be. So now you know what it is, right? You might say, okay, that is natural world because something's actually happened. This is, some kind of whatever. Maybe there was a volcano went off and the sulfur gases have somehow, I'm not a scientist, clearly, so maybe it is an actual thing, or maybe it has to do with the seasons, or maybe it has to do with whatever. So you might say, okay, natural world. Or you might say, well, no, that's a curse, right? So a curse falls into probably supernatural and unusual. Now you might say a ranger, probably that's not in their specific category, obviously a special category. It might not even be their major field, but a ranger in most editions are spellcasters, right? And in fact, rangers, I believe, can cast cleric and magic user spells. So you might say, I'll count that as a minor field. So then you can say, okay, we're going to look at this and we're going to say, and what I would do is I start at the top. I would say, let's see if they know an exacting information. And you look at this and you go, it's 11 to 20%. So you roll a d10. Let's say you get a 5. So they have a 15% chance. They roll. They don't succeed. Okay, let's see if they can get some specific knowledge. Again, you roll your d10. Let's say it's 37 this time. You roll that. They succeed. Now you can give them some specific knowledge. They don't know exactly what's going on, but you know that this kind of thing is caused by a magical corruption, usually of some kind of a beast or a creature that doesn't belong on this plane of existence that's been trapped here and is contaminating. Okay? That's specific, but it's not exacting, right? General might be something like, let's say they failed specific, but they got general. General might be something like, it's not a natural phenomenon for sure. There's something here that shouldn't be here and it is corrupting the land, but you don't really know what it is. Okay? That's what they got. Your player character. How long did it take them to figure that out? Again, minor field. We look over here. If for minor field, for specific, it took them 2 to 20 days to figure that out. So what you might do is roll all 3 of them, give them the general information, ask them if they want to keep researching, and then go from there. That's probably how you should do it so that they can decide to spend more time. But again, I was just doing it that way to show you how it would work. So basically, use the same thing for the sages. Just think about what your player characters might know. And probably, unless it's like dead on what they know about, I wouldn't ever make it their special category. Because I feel like that's like somebody who spends time just studying that one thing. So use these pages. It's from the DMG. This is obviously, I love my physical copy that I got, I think on eBay or something. They're getting more expensive. You can get this as a PDF from DriveThruRPG. I will put links in the description below for that. I'll also put a link down there for Enclave. Jump over that Kickstarter. Check it out. I think it's a very cool idea. I love the idea of different types of games, different systems, different types of dice, no dice in this case, or cards. I love different ways to resolve things and different ways to play games with my group. So check that out. You might love it as well. Also look down there. You'll find a link to my Discord server. Like I said, somebody asked me a question over there. I try to answer them when I can. Also, tons of people over there that know as much, if not way more than me, that come on the Discord server and they will answer all kinds of questions. All kinds of stuff is welcome over there, where we have people who are talking about Pathfinder, about first edition Dungeons and Dragons, about OD&D and Chainmail. Jump on over, anything RPG related, very cool. And finally, down there, you'll find a link to my Patreon if you want to check that out. I appreciate it. I'll talk to you soon.